Welcome. Sisters in They Word is a bold, spirit-filled new series on the Out of the Ashes podcast that highlights the process of redemption, rebirth, and restoration through the eyes of women who ain't just quoting scripture, they're living it. These are women who know how to get in their word and come out stronger, wiser, and on fire for purpose. I am your host, Karissa, and this is my co-host.
It's your girl, Diamond.
Now, Diamond, tell us about this episode.
Well, in this episode, we're going to be leaning into the Sistas of restoration, broken places, beautiful grace, bold comebacks. Because real talk, restoration ain't always pretty. It starts with a mess, in the silence, in the moments where you feel overlooked, passed by, or plain tired of trying. This is for the woman who stayed when she had every reason to leave, the one who reached when she had no strength left, the one who showed up again, even when life kept telling her to sit down.
You might not have the words today, sis, but bring your whole heart, because we're about to talk about what it means to be restored, not to who you used to be, but to who you were always meant to become.
Okay, so take a deep breath.
Let the walls down.
You're not alone in this.
God is still in the business of restoration. But God.
Yep. What's up, y'all? It's your girl, Diamond. I want to welcome y'all back to part 2 of Sisters of Restoration. You are now tuned in to the Sisters in They Word podcast.
Okay, come on, radio voice. Come on.
All right, so I'm going to pass it over to my sis, Karissa, and she's going to tell you about the sister that she chose.
Okay, y'all. So I chose Ruth again, and I assure you, it's not because she got a Boaz. Let's not get it twisted. Ruth wasn't pressed about no man. She was not in her prayer closet pleading for a man from God. I'd say that was the furthest thing from her mind. She had already had a man, and although she was in a season where the Lord removed him, a season of loss, she wasn't seeking a replacement. She was seeking God. So let me say that again. She was seeking God. Let me say that again for the people in the back. She wasn't seeking a man. She was seeking God. And because she was seeking God, he gave her so much more than a man. So yes, her story is seen as this sweet tale of redemption and love. But if we take a deeper look, we see that it wasn't just about fixing what's broken. It's about God rebuilding entire lives, restoring relationships, and renewing faith in the midst of deep loss.
Okay, she got us together, huh?
Okay, well, I broke restoration down into 3 categories: lives, relationships, and faith.
I know that's right. Like Pastor Adrian said, the preachers get 3 closing.
Okay. So Naomi and Ruth both suffered great loss. They lost their husbands, their homes, and any sense of security for their future. They went to Bethlehem with nothing but grief and uncertainty. But God didn't just patch up their wounds. He rebuilt their lives from the ground up. You see, they had to lose everything they acquired, likely in their own will, to gain everything that God had for them in his will. You see, it was never just about Ruth getting a man. Oh, no. God used that man to give her restoration. Ruth went from a widowed foreigner to the wife of a respected man, a mother to a child who was part of the lineage of Jesus, Obed. Naomi went from forgotten and bitter to being renewed with joy and purpose.
Okay, so that was the first closing. Let's get into the second closing.
Okay. All right, so the next one is restoration of relationships. Grief and hardship can isolate us, but Ruth's story shows us how God restores through faithful connection. He knew that Naomi was burdened with hopelessness, but Ruth had this drive of perseverance. So no matter what life dealt her, she was determined to keep going. She knew that where she wasn't God's best for her, so she decided to follow him and allow him to lead her to greater.
This is the third closing, right?
Yes, sis.
Okay, well, bring us home then.
Okay. I'm ready. All right, so the last one is restoration of faith. So Naomi's faith was shaken, and it talks about in Ruth 1:21. She said that the Lord brought me back empty.
Ooh, Jesus.
When God strips you of all the things, it hurts, y'all. It stings. And you be like, God, why hast thou forsaken me? But Ruth knew better. My girl knew better. She was like, okay, so through Ruth's loyalty, Boaz's obedience, and the birth of Obed, God slowly rebuilt her faith. Ruth had stepped into a faith that wasn't her own. Remember, she was from Moab, where they practiced idolatry. They didn't see eye to eye with the people from Bethlehem, which is called the house of bread, which is also ironic considering Naomi and Elimelech left due to famine. But Ruth's people didn't share Israel's faith in Yahweh. But Ruth said, your God will be my God. Where you go, I will go. She took on this new faith as she walked into a new covenant life. So her faith journey began with loss, but it led to legacy. She trusted God to rebuild what she could not. So Ruth's story, it shows us that God doesn't just restore what's lost. He rebuilds something new, stronger, and rooted in purpose. Broken lives were made whole. Lonely hearts found family. Shaken faith was restored through love and obedience. When we surrender what's broken to God, we make room for him to rebuild it into something more beautiful than what we ever could imagine.
Okay, well, I know you said you didn't choose her because of Boaz, but you seem to relate to her story so well. What is it about her that relates to you?
Oh, that's a good one. There's so much about Ruth that relates to me. And so just talking about how God just restores us. So I talked about in a part where I said how they had to lose everything that they acquired, likely in their own will. So on my journey, on this faith journey that I have been on, I've literally pretty much lost everything. So once I got to this place where I'm just like, Lord, I refuse to believe that this is your best. And so I had just had loss. Like I had just lost a marriage pretty much. I had made the decision to divorce. And so after dealing with that loss and grieving the loss of that relationship, also not really having financial stability. And so I got to this place where I was just going so hard and just working myself tirelessly just to pretty much survive. And I was like, God, I refuse to believe that this is your best for my life. I'm like, this can't be it. Like, this ain't what your word says. So what I'm missing, the math ain't mathing. Like, make it make sense, Lord. And so, so once I had that conversation with the Lord, it wasn't long after that the Lord started giving me instructions, and I wasn't prepared for what the Lord had coming for me next. Because then God was like, okay, that job, that one that you really ain't making enough money on, but that one that's your only consistent source of income, I want you to quit that job. And I was like, wait, what? Quit that job? You say quit? Oh my God, I'm clutching my pearls. Like, yo. So I literally had to give up everything. And then, as if that wasn't enough, then the Lord, some months after that, ended up telling me to get on the road and leave my home. So I had to leave everything behind. My kids, my dog, my fur baby.
Dog, Lord.
Yes, my fur baby. Cairo. Shout out to him. But yeah, so I had to leave everything behind. And what made it even worse was because I couldn't tell nobody. I couldn't talk to nobody about it. It was just me and God. But I just had to believe. And so here I was in this new land out here in California. There were so many uncertainties. I was grieving loss, the loss of a prior relationship, the loss of my income, my wages, and doing things my way. But that's what I had to do in order to gain everything that God had for me. And so that's why I can relate so much to Ruth's story. And, like I said, it's so much more than what we think it's about. It's so much more than her just getting a man. It's so much more about the things that God was trying to give her beyond that.
So, what would you say to the woman that's on a similar faith journey?
You know what, sis? I would tell them that in order to get the restoration, or in order to allow God to restore us, we have to first surrender what's been broken to him. We have to be willing to lay it at his throne, lay it at his feet.
How can surrendering help them with the restoration?
Surrendering just lets God know that you're no longer relying on yourself to do the things that only God can do in your life. And so once we surrender it to God and we let him know that, then we can just see him move in a different way in our lives. Then we have to go through this season where we have to listen. We have to seek God. We have to get in that secret place and really truly seek God, because once we seek God, then that's when God will speak to us, and then he'll begin to give us instructions. And it's through those instructions that we can then get closer to what God has for us and allow him to begin to restore us.
So what's the takeaway? What do you want the sisters to hear?
The takeaway will be obedience is better than sacrifice.
Jesus. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh my God.
Yeah, and it may get uncomfortable. You know, it's going to sting a little bit once you give up those things, but it's going to be so worth it in the end because we have to make room for what God really truly has for us.